Hi, and welcome to Behind the Headlines of History, a podcast that delves into the intriguing and captivating stories from the news and has a little further look at what lies behind it. And it's brought to you by Ancestry and newspapers.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michala Hulme, historian and genealogist.
And I'm Brad Argent from Ancestry.
Now, if you're new here, each week we delve into the archives of newspapers.com. Then we put our genealogy hats on and we search out those extra records to give you more information on the stories that we are covering.
So let's go behind the headlines of history.
Brad, how has your research gone this week? Has it been productive?
Yeah, look, I research every day. I kind of need to get my fix, if you know what I mean. And some days are frustrating because you can feel like you're circling something and it just, it's there. It's got to be there, but you just can't get it. And some days it's like manna from heaven. It just comes down. And this week, it's a good week.
It's a good week.
Oh, it's a very good week. I kind of stumbled onto this story that I'm going to get into. Weirdly, I stumbled on this story because I was looking for person A, and person B had the same name. And person B's story was so much better. So, sorry, person A, but that's how I kind of got into it.
So person A got the boot because person B's stories was
They
better.
did,
Yeah.
and it's like, that's my instinct, is to always follow the story.
Mm-hmm.
Story is the thing that leads me there, and then I want to understand who are the characters, right? Who are the characters that are driving it? So I'm kind of a narrative first, character second guy.
So I used AI this week for the first time
Ooh.
in my research. I know. Well, I kind of did two things with it. So one, I asked it if it could give me keywords, like keyword searches, suggestions that would produce me some interesting newspaper articles. That was quite fun. So it gave me about 20. And then I also asked it a question that I knew the answer to of one of my stories. I said, do you have any information on this person? It did, but there's a few things that were wrong. So like I knew the birth date was wrong, and then I knew a couple of other bits were wrong. So then I kind of didn't trust it. So I thought, I'm going to try it. It was pretty good for the keyword searches, not so good on the actual history element.
So I like AI, but the way I treat AI is the same way I treat other people's research. Right? It's like a signpost that points you in a direction, but you still have to go on the journey.
Mm-hmm.
So if AI is giving you something, great. Dive in, check it out. But always check the sources. Always go back to the source. And it's the same with people's trees. If they source them, go and have a look at the source. They could have misinterpreted something. I have made mistakes. And, full disclosure, I still make mistakes in my research. Sometimes I get carried away. Sometimes the story's just too good.
Anyway, speaking of two good stories,
Yeah.
what have you got for us this week?
When you think of Highwaymen, well, certainly when I think of Highwaymen, I'm thinking 17th to 18th century England.
So there are also highwaymen in other parts of the world. Obviously, a highwayman is just somebody that is robbing you on the road.
Yeah, I get that. But immediately in my head, it's very much a British thing. Well, actually, an English thing is kind of where my default went. So imagine my shock when I discovered this story. And I'll go straight to the headline. Encounter with highwaymen. Officer Martin killed by robbers. Death of the notorious Rattlesnake Dick.
Pardon?
Yeah, exactly. And I was just like, what? So this is from Rocklin in California. It's the Placer Herald. It's Saturday, the 16th of July, 1859. And this was on page 2, but this should have been a front page story.
This deserves a page 1
Oh,
story.
yeah, just with that headline alone. Now, of course, I wanted to know all about who this Rattlesnake Dick was. And his name was Richard Barter. Now, I'd been researching a completely different Richard Barter when I came across, just how I came across this guy. And he was born in Quebec in 1833. He was the eldest son of Charles and Hannah. There is a suggestion in some other write-ups, because this was a big story, that his father Charles was a British Army officer, obviously based in Quebec. And there's something to suggest a deeper connection to Britain in Richard's life, and we'll get to that. So by 1850, both of his parents were dead, and Richard and his brother and sister and her husband left Quebec and they moved to the US, and they ended up in a place called Sweet Home in Oregon.
That sounds so nice.
It does sound lovely, but the lure of the California goldfields drew Richard and his brother and one of his cousins to a place called Rattlesnake Bar. This seems to be where he's picked up the name Rattlesnake Dick, right? And now Rattlesnake Bar, just to give you some context, it's at the northern end of what is now Folsom Lake, which is on the outskirts of Sacramento in California. But back then, this was frontier territory, mining town stuff. They're scattered everywhere. Everybody was looking for the elusive gold. He's obviously in this because he's a highwayman, and spoiler alert, it's the death of him, right? So, how did he become that highwayman? His first criminal career began in 1854, and he was done for stealing some clothes and imprisoned in San Quentin for 12 months, and he was discharged just before Christmas in 1855. And I factually found his prison record in the San Quentin prison record. Now, I got these pictures from Find a Grave, because he does actually have a gravestone. I'm going to show you this picture of him. I think it's a modern reconstruction. It's sepia toned. He's got a hat on. He does look like a kind of an outlaw. He's got a moustache that droops down. It's lovely.
If I'm honest, I've got a bit of a crush.
Well, you do have a thing for bad boys.
Yeah, especially historic ones.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So we were able to get a little bit more information about what he looks like, because I pulled some information from his prison records. He was about 5'9", though some say he was almost 6 foot. So I kind of think like they probably measured him at the prison. And what you need to remember about prison records, particularly when they start to record physical details of people, it's because they can't take photos. And so they use these physical details to match up with people when they perhaps are saying they're someone that they're not. He had auburn hair and hazel eyes. I'm starting to get a bit of a crush on him as well. But when he was in San Quentin, he met a guy called Tom Bell. And upon his release, he joined Bell's gang, his outlaw gang, and they were terrorizing California's mining community, just going in and, robbing people at gunpoint. When Tom Bell was captured and hung, allegedly, there's probably a movie to be written about that guy, because some say he was captured and hung. Some say it wasn't that Tom Bell. It was another Tom Bell. Mm-hmm. But anyway, for whatever reason, Tom was taken out of the picture on the 6th of October, 1856. And it was then that Richard took over the gang. Now, the Rattlesnake years, if you like, for the gang were quite prosperous ones. They robbed banks, they robbed stagecoaches alike. They didn't really care. If there was money, they were going to get it. And they hauled an estimated $30,000 at the time.
Wow.
Now, in today's money, that's 18 million US dollars. Now, that's a lot of cash. So they were probably quite good at what they were doing. But of course, that angered a lot of people. People don't like it when their money is taken from them at gunpoint. And so, obviously, the law were after him. And he was captured several times. But he seems to have been something of a slippery character, and he managed to escape multiple times. And the last time that he managed to get out, there was a little posse that was formed. There was a sheriff, there was the deputy sheriff, and this perhaps gives some sense of the scale of just what he was stealing, was also the deputy tax collector. So the deputy tax collector, the sheriffs, they track him down. And then it's like, there's this kind of, obviously, it's this Western standoff. And they're there, and, good old Rattlesnake Dick turns towards him, exposing his face in the mirror. So they thought it was him. As soon as they saw him, they knew it was him. And he just goes, yeah, it's up. Oh, like, so cool. And he drew his pistol. Johnson, who was the sheriff, recognized the face and voice immediately and fired upon Dick, returning the fire and shooting Johnson through the left hand and severing his bridle rein. So the deputy's been shot.
Wow.
I can just imagine it now. There's this scene from a Western where the guns are blazing and people are getting shot. Some people are missing out. And that, of course, is when poor old Rattlesnake Dick was mortally wounded and took off into the night. And they hunted and searched for him, and they all night, and they were unable to find him until the morning. And we're talking July 1859. They found his body, and scrawled on a piece of paper were the following words. So he'd penned this just as he was dying. Rattlesnake Dick dies, but never surrenders, as all true Britons do. So he had the last word.
Wow.
But it gets a little bit more interesting because they found something else on his remains. And Richard Rattlesnake Barter had on him a letter from his sister. If you're a bit of a newspaper junkie like me, this is newspapers gold. You're getting personal correspondence because they transcribed it and they've put it in the article. So I want to read it out to you.
Love it. Okay.
My dear, dear brother. So this is dated the 14th of March, 1859. This is a couple of months before he's killed. I can scarcely believe, or rather realize, that I am again indulging in the privilege of addressing you with the hope of being heard or understood. And trembling, I ask you, my much-loved brother, the guide of my infant joys, the long-lost friend of my childhood, will allow a renewed correspondence to open between you and your good old home. Oh, exclamation mark, how our hearts have ached for a word from your own pen. Years have passed away since your last letter reached us, years that now seem to be lifetimes. I have grieved, but never despaired, for I have prayed the Father that he would restore you to the path of rectitude. She's clearly an intelligent, articulate woman. But if he has not already, you will say, ah, me, he will never save me. But I say faithfully, he will. Oh, brother, will you not be saved? Jesus will raise your head and make you a new man. Go to him, oh, my brother. Will you not write a few words to your own home? Look down deep into your heart and see if there is not a wish to remember your sister, your own most affectionate and anxious sister, Harriet Barter. She's pouring her heart out to him. Amend your ways.
See
come
the light.
home.
Yeah.
Stay in touch with us. And, clearly there's been some kind of estrangement. He's
breakdown.
obviously taken a path very different from hers.
Yeah.
And he's kept that letter on his person. So he still has a connection. And, of course, that letter was sent from Sweet Home in Oregon.
I love that story.
What
a nice story.
It is such a... Look, it's a story about a murderer who finally got their comeuppance.
Yeah.
But there is humanity.
Yeah,
in
and
it.
I think, just that headline alone makes you want to know more, doesn't it? It leads you in.
Absolutely. It's the journalist crafting away. Now, what have you got for me?
So my front page story this week is from the Evening Standard, which is a London newspaper. It's from Tuesday, the 18th of November, 1924, and it's on page 9. And it's about a person called Alfie Solomon, who is charged with manslaughter. He's attacked another man in the Eden Club called Barney Blitz. Don't you just love the names? Barney Blitz.
Barney Blitz is an awesome name.
Now, there are going to be people watching this and listening to us thinking, I recognise that name. Where do I know that name from? Well, if you are a fan of the show Peaky Blinders, you will know the name Alfie Solomons because he's played by Hollywood actor Tom Hardy.
So that's that's a Solomons with an S, but this was
Yeah.
without the S.
A lot of the characters that you see on screen are based on real life people that actually existed.
Awesome. So now as you're telling me this story, I can just picture Tom Hardy in this role.
Absolutely. So Alfie Solomon was basically a henchman. So he was part of a gang called the Sabini Gang, which is also in Peaky Blinders if you watch it. And they are bookmakers and they are basically running the races, right? Like on the South Coast, on the Southern Circuit. So, you know, if you are putting a bet on, you are basically lining their pockets. And then what happens is we get a clash because these guys turn up from Birmingham. They're another gang. They turn up from Birmingham. They're not called the Peaky Blinders. They're called the Brummagem Boys. I think that's how you pronounce it. They turn up and they want a piece of that pie, right? So they're like, get out of Epsom. We're bookmakers from Birmingham. We're going to take over your turf. And basically, you have, you know, for the next decade or so, you have basically turf wars going on.
Really?
Eventually, the Sabini gang does turn on Alfie Solomon. He thinks that they have set him up. So that sort of relationship does break down eventually when the police raid one of the races that Alfie Solomon is there doing his illegal business, and the police sort of raid it, and it's said that one of the Sabini gang tipped off the police to go and raid it. So eventually they kind of bring each other down. But yes, these people did really exist, and there are so many stories in the newspaper. You know, at one point, the head of the Brummagem Boys turns up and Alfie Solomon stabs him. But nobody will, like, obviously, because you wouldn't, why would you? Nobody witnesses this.
No, I didn't see a thing.
Nobody witnesses. Everyone's like, oh, did you see this? No, I didn't see this. No, I didn't. So he gets off with that. He gets off with wounding. Honestly, if you are into your TV crime dramas, you know, then check out. There's a few different articles about the Sabini gang and about the Birmingham gangs as well, which I'll link below. And when you read them, you will think, I recognise these stories from the screen, or, you know, similar stories. I've got a picture of the original Alfie Solomon, if you would like to see
yes,
it. Would you
please.
like to see it? Now, if you've seen the programme, right, you'll know that Alfie Solomon's is quite rough and ready. How would you describe the picture?
I'm looking at this picture of, there's two men in this photo. One is clearly some kind of official with a hat on. But the gentleman in question, Alfred Solomon, he's got double-breasted suit on, quite a high collar and a tie, hat with a black band around it, clean-shaven. He could pass as a politician.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not getting, based on what you've sort of told us about him, I'm not getting those vibes from him.
No. So he was most definitely a career criminal. So he was part of the Sabini gang, which, if you're into Peaky Blinders, you will know. And then you've got the Brummagem Boys, who is run by a guy called Billy Kimber. Now, I think if you sort of unpick Billy Kimber's life and some of the things he got up to, and Billy Kimber is actually in Peaky Blinders, he had a character in it. I think Thomas Shelby, who's the main character, is broadly based on Billy Kimber. Because a lot of what you see sort of that Thomas Shelby's done, you will find parallels with with Billy Kimber.
So what happened?
He got off with the first sort of big crime for him, which was he stabbed Billy Kimber. He gets off with that one because, as I say, nobody saw it. Oh, we didn't see what happened. He gets off with that one. He doesn't get off with the Barney Blitz one. He gets sentenced and goes down for it. So, yeah, they couldn't quite maybe pay anyone off to get off with that one. But if you like your crime, there are loads of records out there you can look at. Newspapers are brilliant because you get the intricacies of what's happened in the stories and stuff.
There seems to be this kind of like period in the newspapers from really late Victorian, really until the end of the Edwardian period, that 50% of the content in the newspaper is crime. It's the kind of thing that people wanted to consume, and it's safe because there's drama, there's violence, there's intrigue, it's happening, but it's in the paper. It's not happening to me. It's kind of removed. It's kind of like the TV of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you're into that stuff, there is so much, and there is so much in there that it's actually sometimes difficult to find stories from that time period that aren't about crime. And speaking of crime and gangs, for extra, read all about it, I have a gang story.
Do you?
Yes.
Is it as good as my Billy Kimber, Alfie Solomon, Peaky Blinders gang story?
I don't think it has the cred.
Okay.
But it has something. It's the only way I can describe it. So this is the story of the Owl Gang. You're supposed to say, who?
Who?
The Owl Gang. Now, this comes from the Evening Herald, Dublin, Ireland. It's Monday, the 23rd of December, 1929. It's the Great Depression has kind of kicked in. Things are not good. People are having to turn to alternate means to
survive.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of Christmas where people are, expenses are usually going up. It talks about this as a court case. It's the story of remarkable documents found in a Dublin house. Before Mr. Cusin, SJ, in the Dublin District Court today, Mr. James T. Purden, retired manager of the Northern Bank at Bray, his married daughter, Mrs. Lucy Nolan, and her two children, Claude Nolan, aged 15 and a half years, and Hyacinth, aged 14 and a half, were charged by Inspector Cudley with complicity in the larceny of Rutledge Whitworth bicycle. So they nicked a bike. They searched the house and they found a bunch of really interesting evidence. In consequence of the search warrants, the detectives went through the house and discovered a number of documents and a diary. One of the documents produced read as follows. The Owl Gang. So this is who was in the Owl Gang. Okay. Mother Sly, Hyacinth, Slick, Triple X, Red Gangster. I'm entirely sure what all those words mean. There is to be readiness, efficiency, and daring amongst the gang. A member is to try and steal as much as possible and pay particular attention to stores.
So this is like a gang manifesto.
It is a manifesto.
Yeah.
This is the family of a retired bank manager. And in their house is this manifesto of this gang that's just going to go around nicking stuff. Each member shall try to steal one article per month, and the stealing of 6 articles in any month will entitle a member to the badge of the gang. It also says, do you want to make money? This is again part of the manifesto. Then just help us to steal different things.
And on that bombshell, folks, I'm going to share mine.
What do you got?
So my extra story is from the Houston Post in Texas. It's Monday, the 30th of November, 1903, and this is on page 1. The title is Thanksgiving Robbery. It has a sort of similar feel to yours. So yours was happening around Christmas time, which I suppose if you are going to steal anything, you want to steal it where people are distracted, aren't they? So, you know, around Christmas time, people are going out for dinner. Thanksgiving is another great time if you're going to steal stuff.
Yes.
And
No, this is not a tip.
Yeah, please don't do that.
Please don't try this at home.
No, definitely not. But my extra
Mm-hmm.
takes place in Philadelphia, believe it or not. And it's Thanksgiving evening. Everyone's sitting down, they're having dinner. And a servant who is working in the home of William Harrison decides that he is going to steal while the family are distracted. He doesn't just steal a measly amount, say a couple of dollars. No, he actually steals a pearl necklace valued at $15,000.
You're going to notice that missing.
Yeah, and a large number of other items were taken. In total, the value was $20,000 he took.
See, he's greedy.
And you might think, oh, how did they know it was him? They knew it was him because he disappeared the night of the robbery.
Come on.
Well, not only does he go missing the night of the robbery, which I'm just going to show you a bit of a giveaway that he's done something wrong, he's also then found with all of the items on him, apart from 2 items that he'd probably managed to sell along the way. So, yeah.
You want to fence it really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a criminal mastermind by any stretch, but disappearing on the night of the night of the robbery, sort of pointing all the eyes at you, isn't it?
But then again, if he'd done it well, we wouldn't be reading about it in the newspaper because it would just be mysterious disappearance of jewellery. There'd be no finger pointing. And if that was your ancestor who had done that, you might be a little bit kind of like, oh, that's a little embarrassing, but also, oh, that's a little bit something I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And so when you're doing newspaper research and you look for things, sometimes you might find a bit of information that takes a little while to process and might not always be the glowing hero. It could be the jewelry thief. It could be the Owl Gang. Sit with it, process it for a little bit, but it's part of the story of who you are. Own it.
But the takeaway from today's episode, folks, is don't steal.
Okay.
It's not big. It's not clever. It will land you in jail. Don't steal.
Newspapers are full of people getting caught.
Yeah.
So we are fast approaching, can you believe it? The holidays. And it's a great time of year to start thinking about doing your family history because you'll often find yourselves all around the same table. And if you're doing that, a couple of quick tips for you. 1, find the oldest person at the table and ask them questions. Keep asking them questions about where they were born, where their parents were born, where their grandparents were born, what they remember. Write it down. And then dive over to Ancestry, take out a free trial and start building a tree. Start building back, finding out that information, getting the hints and bits. Dive onto newspapers, see if you can find a story about them. It is a great time of year to begin your family history journey. Well, I mean, that was a fascinating episode. A couple of wrong uns in there, but you're going to come across that. If you've enjoyed this and you want to read those articles, if you look at the video description stuff, there will be links to that. If you're listening on audio, it will be in the show notes. We're going to find links to it. If you've got stories that you found that you want to share with us, drop them in the comments, or you can reach out to us on our socials. Michala is
at Dr. Michala Hulme,
and I'm at Brad_Argent. You can always ping us on at Ancestry or at newspapers.com and give us your feedback on the show, thoughts for stories, and maybe your own story. If you found a great story, please share it. And as always, like, subscribe, share.
We really appreciate every single one of you for tuning in and giving us your feedback. So thank you so much. And until next time, that is us signing out for today. Behind the Headlines of History is a podcast from Ancestry and newspapers.com. All newspaper articles are sourced from newspapers.com, with additional research on Ancestry and using other sources. We recorded at the Outset Studio. The wonderful producer is Bryony Partridge. The executive producers are Myron Angus and Victoria Welsh. Editing on this episode is by Matt Birtwell.